We have Vija Williams, that been a special friend and a colleague for many years, and she just recently joined eXp Realty. Woohoo! Super excited about that. And for maybe the one of you that doesn't know Vija, she's been one of the top leaders and influencers in the industry for many years. And Vija, can you share just a little bit about yourself, and then let's jump into our content today?
Yeah, thank you. I am the head of industry at Place, which is a really weird title. And it means that I literally have talked to hundreds of teams, seen their P&Ls, coached, consulted, recruited them in teams like Spring Benson, Veronica Figueroa, Eric Hatch, all the names you know. And so I coach for John Cheplack. I've just had a lot of exposure to teams. I've had a team of my own for many years, and so that is my niche. I focus on real estate teams. There is nothing I don't know about real estate teams at this point, I don't think. So I've just had a lot of exposure to it, and I've seen the behind the curtains. And by that, I've seen hundreds of P&Ls of the teams that we see on stage. I understand what they're doing right, what their challenges are, what they're doing wrong, and I've lived through most of them. So that's what the topic. Tom asked me to speak today, and I thought it would be a good topic because there's a huge misconception of when do you start a real estate team? How do you know you're ready? Has anyone here wondered that? Like, you're like, I don't know, like, should I do this? Should I not? Or you've had a team in the past. You're not sure if you want to go back. Anyone here gone through that where you're just not sure if you want to blow it up and go big or stay single? No one. No one here. Yes? No? No? Well, we can talk about something else if no one here relates to that. It's a question I get a lot. And, here's something to think about. If any of you guys have organizations and you're actively recruiting, this is a good presentation for you to use for someone, as their coach and their mentor. So think about this content in two ways. If it's not relating to you, this is good. It's a good framework for you to use when you're coaching other people. Yeah. So let me share my deck. Oh, good. You got me all set up, Han. Look at
Set
you.
up.
The
Ready to
tech's
go.
all working. Like, it's amazing.
Woo.
All right, you guys can see that okay, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So I'm going to kind of go through a couple reasons to start a team. And this is the number one reason. So here's the deal. Whether it's you or people you're coaching, people you're recruiting, if they say, I just think I want to start a team. It just feels right. It looks fun. I've seen some people that I admire that have teams, and I just think I want to start a team. If they do not have number one, we will counsel and coach them out of it. I will coach you out of it. Okay. The number one reason to have a real estate team, and the number one way you're ready, is that you have more leads than you can handle on your own. Okay. If there's anything that you walk away from this, that's got to be it. We have to lead with leads, right? So what does that mean? It really means that in a way you've hit a personal production ceiling and you can't grow without leverage. This is another way of saying it. Every agent's different. Like, I have a really low tolerance. So when Vija starts getting to 24 deals a year, she's overwhelmed. She needs people. I probably need people. You guys, I probably need people at 18 deals a year. Like, that's just who I am. Some of you superstars here are soloing it at 48 deals a year. Like, I don't know how you do it. I'm not wired that way. You're amazing. Bowing down to you. A lot of the times this is in that 24 to 36 range where, we're 2 to 3 to month and we're at a point where, like, we at least need admin help if we don't have it, like full-time admin help. And then when you're paying a fixed overhead, like admin help, then you start going, well, I probably need to bring in more revenue. And that means maybe I'm at a point where I can start giving some of my buyers away. And then it starts, right? Because again, the leads are leading this. Are you guys tracking with me on that? Okay. So we're getting pushed forward by leads. So if you're a solo agent and it does look fun to have a team and it does look attractive and you're kind of feeling the pull, that's a good thing. It's not that I'm talking you out of it. What I would say is your number one job is to lead generate, prospect, market like crazy, do whatever you have to do to create a world where you're a lead generator. You have to be a lead generator in order to have a real estate team. Okay. All right. Here's what I mean by that. And I do want to drill down a little bit on that because I have been down this road so much. You have to have your primary source of business has to be replicatable and repeatable. Now, that does not mean all of you here are capable of having a really big team, even if you have 100% sphere-based business. But what has to be replicatable and repeatable is your training and your scripts and your processes around how you're predictable and consistent in that sphere business. Do you guys understand that? I paused because I want that to land. So it can be a lead source. Sometimes that happens if you think back to short sales or REO days, that was simply a Zillow Flex, right? These are lead sources that we know are going to be predictable and stable and that we can bring more agents on and they're going to have a lead source, right? But a prospecting system can also be replicatable and repeatable if it is, right? And so I don't want you to hear what I'm not saying. This doesn't have to be a third party lead source, right? This doesn't have to be something that we're, whatever, like some lead source. It can be something you're doing, but your system, you have to start frameworking your stuff and putting models around it. So if you're like, I'm just crushing it with Sphere, or I'm getting a ton of out-of-state agent referrals or whatever it is, what you have to do is just kind of get to a point where that's not guesswork anymore, where you can predict it. Where you have some kind of a formula and a business model to predict it, which means you're going to start tweaking it on your own. And when you get to that point, then you're ready to have a team. Does anyone have any questions on that, or do you want more explanation on that?
Well, I think that's number one mistake is a lot of people just really feel like, oh, hey, I want to build a team. I want to build a team. So I think that's an amazing point. And I think that is really, really key. Have you seen agents make the mistake to try and start a team without leads?
Yeah, it's not. I've seen it work, and I've seen it not work. So where I've seen it fail, Tom, is when it's a great question. I'm glad you asked it. Where I've seen it fail are teams that say, loudly and proudly, like, we don't have to have leads. That's not going to be our culture, and that's fine. But they have nothing else to offer. So someone's just coming to their team and they're like, okay, get on the phones for an hour, and it's not structured enough. There's not a system or a framework in place, and then on top of that, they think they can't provide leads. One of the teams I coach now, who's now he's like a top 10 EXP team in Houston. They're amazing. They've gone up like 40%. We started coaching about 15 months ago, and they've gone up like 40% in the last year. So I think they'll hit 120 million or something this year. They do not give leads, but they have so much value proposition. Like, they are lead generating together. They have a crew now because they're bigger, and we're helping them get little pod leaders that will go on listing appointments with them. They teach them scripts. There's accountability. There's culture. There's sales managers in place now at this point because they're at like 40 to 50 agents, right? There's such a big training and mentorship and accountability value proposition there. Like, we are just now talking about, all right, we probably should get some leads. Like, it's probably time to start adding some leads. But this is 40 to 50 agents, profitable. You know what I mean? So I've seen it both ways. And so don't hear what I'm not saying. Like, you don't have to have third-party leads for this, but you do have to. If you're not going to have that, I get a little nervous about that. I think we need to give leads. I think we need to walk into having a team, Tom, and say, no, they need some leads. They're going to need some leads to bolster their business. Cole and Kelly's team is probably the rare team that I've seen that's had success without doing that. So yeah, it's a great question.
Thank you.
Okay. The other reason to start a team is that you're drowning in admin stuff. You're not good at it. It's making you, less effective agent because you're just kind of juggling all the things. Because really, the first hire of any team, well, actually, someone unmute. What's the first hire of any team? What should be your first hire? Should it be an
TC.
agent or should it be an admin? Perfect. Whoever said TC, yes. Yes. What's the second hire?
Fire
Showing
station.
assistant.
Yes. Ish. Right. And, I would actually say TC, admin, showing assistant, and or buyer's agent, whatever, and or agent, there's some fuzziness in there. But the thing with a TC is a variable expense, right? You probably need an admin. If you're at 24 to 36 a year, you probably need an admin, and that's a fixed expense. And so, automatically your income's going to come down, right? So in order to bolster that income, typically it happens fairly simultaneously that you get that showing agent or that buyer's agent to at least start trying to get some business out of your listings. And by the way, side note, let me just say this to you guys, you listing machines out there. So anyone here on this call, or if you're coaching anybody, some of you, I come across y'all every once in a while. It's just like you're the magic person. You are just that person that gets like a ton of listings. Is anyone here that person? Every once in a while, I come across agents who are just, they will just get listings in their sleep, right? You're just magic. It just happens. Tom, do you know what I mean?
Get that.
Is that Tom?
Oh, yeah.
Tom's that person. Tom, you're that person then. Every once in a while, I see just these like magic listers, right? Okay. You are producing leads. One listing, if you're really good at a listing multiplier, one listing will feed one agent per month in leads for that listing. And by listing multiplier plan, this is what I mean. You have a written framework, and this is exactly going back to what I was talking about on the second slide. And you say, okay, agent, Jackie, and you're my new agent, and this is what we're going to do. Here's your listing multiplier plan. I'm bringing on a new listing every week, okay? And you're my first hire. So this is what you're going to do every week. On Mondays, we're going to get prepped for the open house, and you're going to set that up. And then on Fridays, you're going to go knock 5555. You're going to go hand deliver or whatever. On Thursday, you're going to circle prospect because this is where we get our land voice list or whatever we're going to do. And on Saturday, you're going to do opening weekend. You're going to do an open house Saturday and Sunday. You're going to do an hour before with all those neighbors you invited. Blah blah. There's a plan in place. You should be able to get one piece of business out of that listing. Just by delivering listings, you are delivering leads. If you're a listing machine, or if you're coaching someone who's a listing machine, they are ready to start a team. They need a team because they're not leveraging those listings enough to get business out of it. I feel very strongly about this. We don't have to pay for leads. Listings are leads. Now, if you're bringing in, 2 to 4 listings a month, and not all of them are going to be in prime areas. Some of them are going to be octagon houses 2 hours away that no one really wants to work. Like, I get it. But most of your listings are probably pretty good and can get at least one piece of business and get your agents the right activities, right? So you can't do all that though without an admin. You just can't. I promise you, if you're that good at getting listings, you are not good at admin. It's just the way it goes. There's a polarity that happens, right? So when you're really, really drowning in admin stuff, it is probably time to start looking at a team, because you need to hire an admin, and then you're probably going to need to hire at least one agent and go from there. Any questions on that before I move on?
No, you're spot on. That's awesome.
Yeah, most agents and a lot of teams are not squeezing the juice out of the lemons of their listings enough, right? Listings are they're our best lead sources we have. You can boost them. There's different things we can do with those listings to get more leads. Some of it is paid, but we're not paying a third party for the leads. Sometimes we're paying a third party to get leads off of our own listing, yes, but we're using that as the leverage point. This is important and it's obvious, but it needed to be said anyway. You're ready to stop being a deal junkie to a certain extent. You can still be a deal junkie. It's okay to stay in production. I approve. But you're also ready to spend your time recruiting and leading people, not just doing deals. And, everybody needs their own adrenaline shot. I get it. You're allowed to cherry pick. You're allowed to stay. And I actually want you to stay in production as long as possible. You're going to stay way more profitable that way. But you also need to have a heart and a head for recruiting. If you really want to have a team, hear me right now. You stay really small and you make it yourself, an assistant, 1 or 2 agents, or you go really big. Promise me you will not stay in the messy middle. Promise me. It's not worth it. It's really hard to have a team of 5 or 10. And the minute I say that, for all of you who have these great Navy SEAL teams here of 5 or 6 or 7, enjoy this moment of your life. It will not last forever. They leave in 2s or 3s and it just doesn't last. So that's great. It's a special time in your team evolution, and enjoy it. and get bigger. It's just the only way forward on a team is really small or really big in my mind. Fight me on it. Like, I mean, everyone's going to have their own opinion, but I have a lot of exposure to teams, and that's where I'm sticking with it. So that means you need to like recruiting and just and be good at talking to people and reaching out, being clear about what your value proposition is. I find really good team operators are actually kind of framework thinkers. So they tend to think in terms of how can I systemize and make this repeatable and replicatable, right? So if you kind of have a CEO brain, in fact, I think, yeah, I have a couple slides on that. If you have a CEO brain and you're more interested in growing a business rather than selling real estate, which is what I always was. Selling real estate, I was good at it. It just wasn't. I haven't sold real estate in a while now, and it was just never my. I didn't love it. I just never really loved it. But I love growing and running businesses, and I knew that early on. I knew that. If you kind of know that about yourself, that's great because you are going to be running a business. To me, there's not a lot of point in starting a team. And again, unless you're going to be small and you're looking for a super tight little leverage, like I said, you, an assistant, a couple agents, I get it. Maybe it's 3 agents because there's some geographic, but really tight and small, really profitable. You're still doing a lot of the production. You're generating a lot of the lead sources. That's good. Or really big. These messy middle teams are really tough. That's a whole call. Like, we're not going to go into the
before you
messy middle.
leave the slide about growing a business, could you speak to what teams sell for when they do?
When they sell, yeah, teams, I do think, Don, that I think that we're in an era now where teams are starting to be looked at just like brokerages used to be. Like, I think that they're sellable assets now, and I think we're moving into an era where they didn't used to be. It used to be you had to go into make your team into a team bridge or an independent brokerage to be a sellable asset, and I think that's softening. So I mean, a typical brokerage multiple would be around 3 EBITDA. Is that what you're asking? What the sales multiple is? Yeah, I'd say
heard maybe 2.5.
2 to 3. We've done. I don't want to get into when I've structured 4 or 5 of those, and when I've structured them, I will just say that if it's a high multiple, it's a long, really good terms for us, for the acquirer. If it's a lower multiple, it's because they want cash. They just want cash. But I'm seeing a more acceptance of not necessarily teams being sold, but using them as an annuity. And just, that's kind of where Place has seen some success, where we can kind of train them to have them run themselves. And they're kind of getting a recurring income of, 150,000 a year indefinitely, versus a, 2.5 or 3 multiple where they're done in 3 years and there's nothing left because there's just not that much. These are not very sellable. These are high cash flow, low value assets. So I'm not a big fan of that. I actually think that, some of the big opportunities that I've been coaching some of my teams to do that have really good name awareness in their market is go after some of those retiring agents and get them to change their mind on how they think they can retire. Because if an agent brings their book of business on a team and they say, I want to retire, you can bring them on as a team member. They can always cherry pick if they want to pop in, and the team starts working their database. I have a team that I know in Arizona, and they did that with a retiring agent. They are getting more business out of her database than she ever got because they're just so tight. Their systems are so good. They're working her database in the system that she could never do. So she's making money in retirement, like real money. So that's why I'm hesitating. I'm just not a big fan of selling teams, but I get it. There's a time and a place for it. Mark Spain took some money off the table, but he went independent to do it, and he still retains major ownership. So he's a big good example. If you or someone that you're coaching have experience running, and notice what's in capitals. What word is in capital? Not just running a business, growing a business, right? They have business growth experience. That's great, especially if it's a service business. That's a good sign. It's a good sign that they're probably a good leader. They understand enough skills to be able to do this. And if you haven't noticed, I take this really seriously. The teams I work with have anywhere from 2 to 12 million in annual revenue. These are getting to be big businesses, right? Like the expectation walking into this is that this is a big business. And so, it's okay if you haven't had business experience before. I'm totally fine with that. If you're feeling it and you kind of feel like your skill set and that, and you're feeling called to recruit and to train and to mentor, and that's great. Someone who has had that, though, is really great, right? They're going to come into this looking at it differently and looking at it through that lens. So I'm always looking at what someone's done in the past, what their past success is. This is a good one. So this happens a lot. I see this a lot where teams have seen success, and they're doing well, and or solo agent. Maybe you now have an assistant, and agents are trying to ask, hey, what are you doing? Do you have any opportunities? Are you going to start a team? Can I come work for you? A lot of teams that I coach with who are in the early days, this is exactly what's happening. They're like, I don't have to recruit. They're just coming to me. I was talking to one, like $150 million team. He's like, I've never recruited. I was at the John Cheplack event with him, and he's like, I didn't even occur to me I would have to recruit. People just come to me and I decide if I want to hire them. And I was challenging him a little bit. I was like, well, that's great, but can you imagine what your life would look like if you recruited 2 cappers a month? It's 24 a year. You have more than enough leads, because I'd analyze his business. I'm like, that's life-changing. That is life-changing. And so we started going through the numbers together. And so, so you do have to get purposeful with that, but it's a really, really good sign if you are attracting agents without trying too much, right? That is a really good indicator, because again, the leads and the agent attraction is leading the growth. You're not pushing it. It's leading it. Doesn't mean you can't start a team if this isn't happening. I'm just saying this is a good sign. And it probably means you're not going to have a problem attracting agents, because here's the thing, recruiting is going to have to be part of this. Recruiting is a massive part. It is the thing with the team. So if you're already doing that without much work, this is just a great sign that momentum will happen fast. Last one. Some of this is just restating things in different words, obviously. But you do have to have a value proposition you recruit to. So, so if Don, if I'm talking to Don's like, Via, like, why would I go on your team? What's it going to do for me? What do you have for me? I told you I want to make, $200,000 a year. How are we going to get there together? Why would I get there easier on your team? How is my life better getting there on your team? Right? You need to be able to walk through. So this goes back to some of those original slides, which is why I said, not only do you need to have at least a primary lead source or prospecting source, you need to have that be repeatable and replicatable, which is why we do start small. When you're hiring, those first few agents, you're really testing and seeing, things. Everyone here, you're just going to be good at what you do, especially if you're one of those listing machines like Tom. Problem is, can Tom replicate that? Can he teach someone else to do, be as effective as him? Is there a system or a process or scripts or how he calls his database or how he does his CRM? You have to just get purposeful about what you're doing. You're just doing it. I mean, you're just doing it, and you're good, and you're messy, and which is wonderful, by the way. And you're creating all this business, but is it repeatable and replicatable to the point where you can teach others and you can teach them effectively to at least make a living and sell a home a month or 2 homes a month that way, right?
Yeah, what is a typical economic model for a team? So what do the sub-agents usually receive as a percent of the GCI? And what is normally spent as a percent on marketing and admin? And what is the net margin usually?
Well, there's no usual, but what we want to see is a bright line of 50% COGS. So we really, really want your blended average of all of your splits to not exceed 50%. That's really important and rarely happens. So almost every team in America has a cost of goods sold problem. Everyone does. Their splits are whacked and it doesn't work. And there's no point having a team if you can't have at least a 50% cost of sale. It just doesn't work, because ideally we do 50% cost of sale, 25% expenses, 25% net-ish. Now, if we can get your cost of sale to 40%, that's when we start seeing teams. And I know 5 or 6 teams that are closer to 40%, which is crazy. Like that's rare air. In the upper 30s, say 35 to 40%, they have a 40% cost of sale, really low expenses. It's cost of sale. It's always the biggest lever is always cost of sale. So that means your splits really should not go above 50-50. If they do, if you have to hit a 60-40 for a long timer on their sphere business or whatever, the really good teams are balancing it out with appointment leads. So appointment leads would be like a 35 or 40%, so that, it's coming in a blended average. The other thing I see is that they're all proud that their COGS is 50%, and then they've got a freaking sales manager override of 5%, which knocks it all up to 55%, really. So if you're gonna build that in, you really need to build a model so that it's 45%, so that you can build in room for any overrides, right? Overrides count. By the way, referral fees count. So Zillow Flex teams, I am not anti-Zillow Flex. I think it's great. I understand the reasons for that. You all need serious appointment leads to try to balance that out. And by appointment lead, it's an ISA, it's the team rainmaker, it's someone saying you have an appointment at 3 with, someone. So long answer, but that could be a whole thing. Because everybody has a cost of goods sale program. I mean, if you have a team and you don't have a COGS problem, you are awesome. You're awesome.
Well, or you have high attrition.
Maybe,
If they have too much margin, maybe for the team, then it's harder to retain people.
It depends. It depends, because there's some Zillow Flex teams, and those agents are only getting, basically, 25%, but they have such a good deal flow and they're getting so much support and it's such a good community that they're okay with it. Some see a churn. It just depends, right?
Via, could you give a brief definition of cost of goods sales, please?
Cost of goods sold is either splits we pay out, referral fees, and anything we pay to our brokerage. So your cap. Transaction fees, like I said, referral fees, and then splits to your agent. So if it's a $10,000 commission and you're on a 50-50 split with your agent, your cost of goods sold, if you're paying out the agent $5,000, your bank account is only seeing $5,000. Right? It's a weird way we look at top line revenue in real estate. It doesn't even land on our bank account. It's kind of funky in most states. Some states vary. So it is kind of weird that we look at GCI, and in most cases, in most states, we see 5,000, not 10,000, but that is how we track it. And it is important to track it that way. And do not forget referral fees. Do not forget them, because that is affecting your cost of sale. If you don't count them in there, you're not analyzing your business properly.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know we're out of time.
Well, let's just wrap up here. We've got about 5 more minutes.
The team that took over that book of business from that individual agent, do you know how many transactions they were able to do from her book?
No.
Or how big it was?
I think I did know at one point. I think I interviewed him like 2 years ago, but what he told me is he's like, she was great. Everybody loved her. And she's just a typical agent, kind of had to get her database from whatever source. And the team just treated it like it was, their database. And it just, and they were just structured, and they were just all over it. And she came in and cherry picked and still does deals every once in a while at a 50-50 split. And they did I know that they did a graduated referral fee to her. I can't remember what it was, but it was like this much first year, this much second year, this much third year. So it was kind of like a 3 or 4 year type of a thing. And, I think it might have ended in perpetuity with like a low, like a 10 or 15%. Like there still might be one in perpetuity. I can't remember, but what struck me was that they did more than her. I was really like blown away by that. Actually, I hadn't heard it before.
Yeah, that's awesome. We do have, I don't see her here this morning, but we do have Stephanie Peck in Oregon City, Oregon, just outside of Portland, bought a book of business and has done 14 deals on it in the last year.
Oh, that's great. Oh, that's great. And when you say bought it, does she pay a referral fee?
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
I love it.
Cash up front.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. This is great. Well, Via, thank you so much. So if someone wants to reach out, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah. I'm here. I'll put my cell. I love co-sponsorship. Had a lot of those calls lately. Spring Benson and I are building a cool community and love to work with, Tom and what he's doing and you guys. So
It's awesome. Well, Via, thank you so much. Okay, everyone. Well, this was amazing. If you have any questions, reach out to Via or myself, Dawn, Randy. Thank you again. So next week, we've got an amazing event next Wednesday, Atomic Habits, same place, same channel. Now you got your inspiration. Time to put in the perspiration. Let's go. Thanks, everyone.
bye.